to the deep dive. Pull up a chair because we really have a wild one lined up for you today.
Yeah, we definitely do.
We are pulling you directly into the unique, highly dramatic, and honestly, occasionally downright chaotic universe of the Cheek Clapping Kings.
The CCK.
Right, the CCK created Team Rebuild League. We are officially wrapping up year one. And the mission for today is simple, but as you know from following this league, nothing is ever actually easy.
Not at all.
We are untacking the raw storylines, the underlying numbers, and the subtle mechanics to figure out which coaches are actually laying the foundation for a long-term dynasty. And, well, which ones are merely getting lucky bounces of the digital football.
Exactly. And I think we have to start with the drama off the field first. Because the landscape this season, it shifted before a single snap was even played.
Oh, massively.
The power vacuum created by the sabbatical of Bam Almighty completely rewrote the script for year one.
It really did. And the psychology behind Bam Almighty's departure, it's a fascinating case study in competitive gaming, isn't it?
It is. Because when a user reaches a certain echelon in a rebuild league, where the mechanics of the game and the flow of user-to-user matchups just become second nature, this distinct type of fatigue sets in.
Right, but it isn't exhaustion, is it?
No, it is sheer boredom. He stepped away because he had essentially solved the puzzle of dominating this specific league. He wanted to give the rest of the field, the jobbers, as they are so affectionately called in the league's inner circles, a chance to feel what the air is like at the top of the mountain.
That is just so arrogant, but so brilliant.
Right. But when a reigning powerhouse vacates the throne entirely on their own terms, it creates immediate, palpable desperation among the remaining coaches.
And that desperation makes perfect sense to me. Suddenly, every single coach in the middle of the pack looks at the standings and thinks, the giant is gone, this is my window. Does that actually change how they play the game on the sticks?
Oh, it changes everything, from their risk profile on fourth down to how aggressively they pursue recruits. When the boogeyman is out of the picture, coaches stop playing not to lose and they start playing to win.
Which leads to mistakes.
Huge mistakes. They force throws. They blitz zero on third and long. Bam's absence didn't just remove a guaranteed loss from everyone's schedule. It injected this level of chaotic ambition into the league that we are seeing play out in these wildly unpredictable one-score games.
It's an incredible walk-off. But Bam wasn't the only massive departure. And this next one is a really tough pill to swallow for the longtime fans.
Yeah, this one hurts.
We lost Willie. And for anyone who understands the hierarchy of this league, Willie was the definition of a playoff caliber user.
Yeah.
He was legendary for engineering those incredibly deep, grueling Florida playoff runs.
Absolutely legendary.
But his exit wasn't about boredom like Bam. He was a casualty of administrative turbulence. The commissioner struggled to get the launch of the league right the first time, then the second time. And eventually, that frustration just boils over. So, we are officially pouring one out for Willie today. R.I.P. to the Florida runs.
R.I.P. indeed. We can only hope that the Lake Erie Phantoms go out there and make him proud wherever they landed.
Right. But from a pure league structure standpoint, what actually happens when you lose a tight end like Willie right at the starting line?
It is a stark reminder that in these hyper-competitive environments, platform stability is just as vital as the X's and O's. When you lose a playoff caliber coach, you immediately dilute the strength of schedule for everyone else in that conference.
So the wins mean less.
Precisely. Wins become slightly less valuable in the eyes of the playoff committee, and the recruiting battles shift. Willie was a gatekeeper. If you wanted to prove your rebuild was legitimate, you had to go through him.
You had to survive Florida.
Exactly. Without him, the path to the playoffs in that region became significantly softer, which might explain some of the inflated records we're going to talk about later. But, nature abhors a vacuum. The league brought in a newcomer to fill the void.
Well, a newcomer, but an old friend to many.
Right, Shane. He took over TCU late in the season.
And Shane stepping into TCU late in the year is such a cinematic setup. But man, he has really struggled out of the gate.
It's been rough.
I just love the imagery of it, though. Him wiping off his Timberlands to walk into Texas and recruit these local rednecks and super athletes to his program. It's hilarious. But any coach taking over a program halfway through a season is going to hit rough patches. I really want to talk about the culture clash there.
The system mismatch is huge.
Right. You have a coach walking into a program that was recruited by someone else entirely, trying to pitch his specific vision to players who are promised a completely different system. It's the classic scenario of a spread offense guru trying to convince ground and pound run blockers to suddenly learn complex pass protection schemes.
And that systematic friction is exactly what makes team building so difficult in a custom league. Recruiting and program management are fundamentally about alignment.
You have to match your roster to your thumbs.
Exactly. If your user-sig skills and play-calling philosophy dictate a fast-paced vertical passing game, but you inherit a roster of sluggish run-blocking maulers and a quarterback with a weak arm, you are fighting your own team just as much as you are fighting the opponent.
So Shane is basically operating a compromised machine right now.
He has an incredible uphill battle, but his late entry provides a fantastic baseline for us. What he does in the upcoming offseason, how quickly he can flip that roster to match his style, that will be the true test of his viability in this league.
That concept of a system mismatch leads us perfectly into the actual teams and the data. Because today, for you listening, we aren't just reciting the standings to you. You can pull those up on your own time.
Yeah, that's boring.
Our mission is to take these raw stats, the points, the yards, the sacks, and blend them directly into the narratives to uncover the coaching vulnerabilities hiding just beneath the surface.
We are going to expose some people today.
Oh, we are. We'll get into the teams with inflated records. We have a heated debate lined up over the playoff rankings. We're pulling a random viewer poll to put a microscope on a championship contender, and we'll look into the crystal ball for year 2.
Let's get into it.
Let's start with part 1. I am calling this the what could have been tier. These are teams with phenomenal statistical profiles, but incredibly rough real-world records. We have to start with Coach Poe and the Queen City Kings.
The expectations for Queen City were sky high.
And they crashed immediately. They lost 5 of their first 6 games and are sitting at 5-7 overall, 3-5 in the Big 12.
The raw data of Queen City's season is just agonizing. When you break down those early losses, 3 of them were decided by a combined 6 points.
3 games, 6 points total.
You're talking about 3 individual plays, 3 bad animations, 3 missed tackles, or 3 dropped passes separate Coach Poe from a completely different narrative.
And what makes this so painful for him is that the Queen City defense is executing at a championship level.
They are phenomenal on that side of the ball.
They're only allowing 21 points per game and a measly 294 yards per game. Holding human opponents under 300 yards in this specific custom league environment is a monumental achievement.
It really is. The defensive front is hunting. They racked up 29 sacks.
They are absolute headhunters on defense. But here's the disconnect I cannot get past, and I need you to explain this to me. The defense is elite, allowing only 21 points. But the offense is only scoring 23 points per game.
That's the glaring issue.
When you lose 3 games by a combined 6 points and your offense is stuck in the mud at 23 points a game, is that just terrible luck, or is there a fundamental glaring flaw in how this offense is being coached?
It is not luck. It points directly to a flaw in high-leverage decision-making. Defense can only carry a rebuild so far before exhaustion sets in. And I don't just mean digital stamina on the virtual players. I mean psychological exhaustion for the user.
Oh, totally. You feel it in your hands.
They really do. When a defense knows the offense is incapable of scoring more than 3 touchdowns a game, the pressure on every single third down becomes astronomical. Coach Poe is asking his defense, which is already getting 29 sacks and giving up under 300 yards, to be utterly perfect.
And no one is perfect every drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 23 points per game suggests an inability to execute in the red zone and poor clock management in the 2-minute drill. When the field shrinks, his play calling becomes predictable.
So you're saying that when it's 3rd and goal from the 4-yard line, his opponents know exactly what button he's going to press?
Precisely. In the open field, you can rely on raw speed and broken tackles. But in the red zone, you need a scheme. You need route combinations that manipulate user-controlled linebackers. Coach Poe is clearly struggling to scheme receivers open when the windows get tight.
That makes sense.
However, we do have to consider the long-term trajectory. Much like Shane at TCU, Coach Poe is playing with inherited personnel. If he wants to play this slow, grinding, ball control style of football that only requires 23 points to win, he needs to recruit massive offensive linemen who can physically move the defensive front on 3rd and short.
Right. He needs his guys.
Yes. Once he gets his specific type of players into the building, those 2-point losses theoretically turn into 3-point wins.
I understand the theory. I do. But until he proves he can actually dial up a passing play in the 4th quarter to put a game on ice, I have a hard time believing in Queen City.
That's fair.
Let's take that exact same concept, teams leaving wins on the field, and move over to the Pac-12. Coach Mayer and the Planeteers.
Another fascinating profile.
They are sitting at 6-5 with a 3-4 conference record and 1 game left against USC. They are calling this a mostly successful year one internally, but again, it is entirely defined by heartbreak.
The statistical profile of the Planeteers is wild because the margins are practically non-existent. They average 26 points per game and allow 24 points per game.
That is a razor-thin margin for error.
It's basically a coin flip every week.
Yeah.
They boast the best defense in the Pac-12, but offensively, they have pushed all their chips to the middle of the table on one single player, running back Javian Thomas.
And Thomas has been incredible.
He is carrying an immense workload. He is currently sitting at 157 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns.
He is an absolute machine. But the heartbreak here is almost worse than Queen City's. Listen to these losses. They had an overtime loss to Cal by 2 points, a loss to Colorado by 3 points, a 10-point loss to UConn.
Brutal.
And the kicker is that every single one of those losses happened at home, in your own stadium, with your home crowd momentum backing you.
That's the Chicago and coach mindset, just saying, let's get to next year.
Right. But when a user leans that heavily on a single running back, when one guy is your entire identity, does that make the team too one-dimensional when the pressure ramps up in the fourth quarter?
It is a classic psychological trap in user-controlled leagues. A coach falls in love with their most productive asset. Thomas is reliable, he rarely fumbles, and he gets positive yardage. So under stress, Coach Mayer goes back to the well.
It's the safety blanket.
Exactly. But predictable play calling in high leverage situations negates any statistical advantage you built up over the first 3 quarters. If you are down by 2 against Cal in overtime, the opposing user isn't guessing. They are calling run commit at the line of scrimmage.
They are pinching their linebackers and daring Coach Mayer to pass the ball.
Which means Coach Mayer's reliance on Thomas is actually exposing a severe lack of late-game coaching adjustments. He has the best defense in the Pac-12, but when crunch time hits, he refuses to use the other 10 guys on the offensive side of the ball.
It's a mindset of survival rather than execution.
Bingo. Coach Mayer is trying to not lose the game by handing it to his safest player, instead of trying to win the game by exploiting the defense's overcommitment to the run.
So what does he need to change?
If he wants to turn those home harpings into victories, he has to develop a counterpunch. He needs a play-action passing game that punishes users for crashing down on Javian Thomas. Until he develops trust in his quarterback, he will continue to lose 3-point games in the fourth quarter.
That makes a ton of sense. You can't just spam the run button in the fourth quarter against good users and expect to win a championship.
The good users will sniff it out every time.
All right, let's flip the script entirely. We just talked about teams with great defenses that can't score. Now we are moving to part 2, the high stat heartbreaks, where the numbers get absurdly explosive.
Oh, this is a fun one.
We are talking about Coach Easy and the North Texas T. Their motto is, "It don't get no sweeter." And for 4 weeks, they looked completely unstoppable. But then the wheels fell off in a spectacular way.
The unraveling of the North Texas T is a brilliant case study in how quickly a season can spiral when a team lacks structural discipline.
It really is.
They suffer a 6-point road loss to Hoboken. Now, Hoboken is a juggernaut, so a 6-point loss on the road is respectable. But then they suffer a 3-point home loss to Florida State.
Started to slide.
And then comes the ultimate killer, a loss to a 66 overall Utah State team.
Just inexplicable.
They are currently sitting 5th in the ACC. And yes, before anyone points it out, we are embracing the chaotic custom geography of this league where North Texas plays in the ACC.
The regional stuff goes out the window in year 1. We just accept it.
Exactly. The placement doesn't matter. What matters is that 5th place is far below the baseline of their talent level.
The talent level is what breaks my brain here, because the stats are staggering. They're putting up 35 points per game. They have 37 passing touchdowns.
The offense is a machine.
And defensively, they have 47 sacks as a team. That is the second most in the entire country. Zaylen Scott alone is sitting on 16.5 sacks.
He's unblockable.
And on the ground, Caleb Hawkins has 1,610 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. You have a top 2 pass rush, a 1,600-yard running back, and a quarterback throwing nearly 40 touchdowns.
That sounds like a title team.
Right. So how on earth does a team with that profile allow 24 points a game and rank as the second worst pass defense in their conference?
That mathematical contradiction tells a very specific story about Coach Easy's defensive scheme. When you have a top 2 pass rush in the nation, but field the second worst pass defense, it means your secondary coaching is functionally non-existent.
They're just running around out there.
Pretty much. Coach Easy is running a boomer bust system. He is likely blitzing heavily or relying entirely on his defensive line, executing specific pass rush moves to get home immediately. If Zaylen Scott and that front four do not sack the quarterback within 2.5 seconds, the secondary completely breaks down.
Because there's no help over the top.
Exactly. The cornerbacks are likely being left on an island with zero safety help because everyone is hunting the quarterback.
So it's essentially zero coverage gambling on every single snap. That explains the shootout nature of their games. But I have to bring up this Utah State loss again.
It's the elephant in the room.
A 66 overall team, when you have elite, top-tier virtual talent at the most important positions on the field, a dominant edge rusher, and a dominant running back, losing to a 66 overall AI-level team shouldn't even be mathematically possible. Does a loss like that go beyond just a bad defensive scheme? Is that a complete lack of mental preparation?
It is the ultimate trap game scenario. It is the danger of the sweep mentality you mentioned earlier. When a team with an explosive offense and a highlight reel pass rush starts having success, they start playing for the stat sheet instead of the scoreboard.
They want the clips for the chat.
They want the spectacular user lurk interception.
Yeah.
They want the 80-yard bomb. Against a disciplined, lower-rated team like Utah State, if you blow your defensive assignments because you are hunting for a sack, the computer or a patient user will pick you apart with 4-yard underneath routes.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
It's exactly. Coach Easy clearly let his team look past an inferior opponent. When you have Caleb Hawkins running for 1,600 yards, you should be able to sleepwalk to a win against a 66 overall team just by running the ball and playing base defense. The fact that they lost means they panicked.
They got outsmarted by a team they should have physically dominated. Brutal.
Truly brutal.
Now, I want to pivot to a situation that I know we are going to clash on. It is time for the rankings debate.
I've been looking forward to this.
We have two teams with fascinating, highly contrasting profiles, and we need to determine who actually deserves the higher spot in the playoff hierarchy. We have Coach Sino and NC State sitting at number 20. And we have Coach Fun and the Zacatepec Caneros sitting at number 14.
Let's lay out the data objectively for both sides before we argue. Coach Sino and NC State are 10-2. They are preparing to play Oregon for the Pac-12 title.
Good record.
Statistically, they are incredibly solid. 32 points per game on offense, 26 points allowed on defense. They have a physical, grinding identity with 23 rushing touchdowns and 26 sacks. But the defining characteristic of this NC State team is the crucible of their schedule.
They play a lot of close games.
Incredibly tight games. They haven't lost a single game by more than 6 points all year. Conversely, up until they played their rival UNC, they hadn't won a single game by more than 10 points. Every single week is a dogfight.
Now look at the other side of the ring. Coach Fun and Zacatepec at number 14. They put up 31 points per game and only allowed 21 points. They have 29 passing touchdowns, and defensively, they only allow 274 yards per game, which is elite territory.
Their defense is nasty.
And their tight end, Tanner Koziol, is an absolute matchup nightmare with 943 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. And here is the most crucial part of their resume. There are only 2 losses on the entire year on the road to Texas and Dras City.
Which is a huge detail.
For context for you listening, Texas and Dras City are the 2 teams currently playing in the Big 12 title game. Zacatepec has won 7 in a row and just needs a win over Baylor for an at-large bid.
There is also a fantastic layer of interpersonal league drama occurring behind the scenes here.
Oh, the friendship dynamic.
Yes, Coach Fun is actively rooting against his friend, Coach Sino. Because NC State is ranked number 20, the only way they get into the playoffs is by beating Oregon and stealing an automatic bid as a conference winner.
Right.
If NC State pulls off that upset, they likely take the number 12 seed, which could mathematically bump Zacatepec right out of the playoff picture. It's a high-stakes, zero-sum friendship.
And this is exactly why I am taking the side of Zacatepec Caneros. I firmly believe Zacatepec should be ranked even higher than 14. Look at the resume.
I'm looking at it.
Their only blemishes are road losses to literal title contenders. There is zero shame in dropping a game to Texas or Dras City in their own stadiums. And look at their defense. Allowing only 274 yards per game is spectacular compared to NC State giving up 26 points every single week.
It's a solid defense, I'll give you that.
Zacatepec has a diverse offense, an unstoppable tight end in the red zone, and they handle their business comfortably against the teams they're supposed to beat. Why should they be penalized for playing the hardest teams in the league?
I understand the allure of Zacatepec's statistical dominance, I really do. But I will defend NC State holding a stronger underlying profile for playoff success. Winning one-score games consistently is the truest test of a user in a created team rebuild league. In a video game environment, chaos is inevitable. Strange animation sequences happen, momentum swings wildly based on crowd noise algorithms, and turnovers can be highly unpredictable.
That's true. The game can cheat you sometimes.
The fact that Coach Sino has navigated those chaotic late-game scenarios all year and emerged with a 10-2 record shows an immense level of psychological resilience. Zacatepec has great stats, yes. But when they faced their biggest tests, Texas and Rose City, they failed.
But those are the best teams.
It doesn't matter. NC State has proven they do not blink when the pressure is maximized.
Wait, so you are telling me you trust a team that scrapes by unranked opponents by a field goal over a team that dominates everyone except the top two teams in the league? Isn't NC State just getting incredibly lucky in the fourth quarter?
It ceases to be luck when it happens consistently over a 12-game sample size. It becomes execution under duress. Zacatepec is a fantastic front-running team, but their defense hasn't been tested in a do-or-die fourth-quarter crucible the way NC State's has week in and week out.
You think they'll fold?
The playoffs are exclusively one-score, high-stress games against elite users. Coach Sino is already conditioned for that environment. Coach Fun might have better stats, but if a playoff game is tied with 2 minutes left, I want the coach who has been in that exact situation 10 times this season.
That is a strong point.
If NC State beats Oregon, they absolutely deserve a top 12 seed over a team that padded stats against weaker opponents but folded against the heavyweights.
I still think you're penalizing a team for having a brutal schedule, but I see your point about the psychological conditioning of close games. I really do.
It's what wins championships.
Well, let's move into part 3 and talk about the true heavyweights of the league then, because even the Giants have massive flaws. Let's start with a team heading into the ACC championship against Hoboken, Coach Steezy, and the North Memphis Smokies.
North Memphis, spelled with an F, which is a crucial stylistic note for the program's identity.
Very crucial.
They were sitting at 11-1. They have won 6 straight games since suffering their only loss to Hoboken back in Week 8. Statistically, their offense is a masterclass in aerial dominance. They are scoring 35 points per game and have an unbelievable 39 passing touchdowns.
The offense is a fireworks show every single time they touch the ball.
It's beautiful to watch.
But the defense, they're giving up 28 points per game, and they officially hold the title for the worst pass defense in their conference. How does a team get to 11-1 with the worst pass defense in the league?
By surviving on a razor's edge. When you dig into the data of their current 6-game winning streak, a terrifying trend emerges. All 6 of those recent wins were one-possession games, and 3 of them were decided by 2 points or less.
Wow. 3 games decided by 2 points.
Combined with documented offensive line concerns and that league-worst pass defense, Coach Steezy is flying far too close to the sun. Surviving a shootout is commendable for a week or two, but it is not a sustainable model for championship football.
It catches up to you.
A team that cannot stop the pass and relies entirely on their own quarterback outdueling the opponent every single week is highly vulnerable.
If they have a bad offensive line, what happens when they play a truly smart user in the playoffs? Doesn't the opposing coach just drop 8 guys into coverage to blanket those passing routes and let a 3-man defensive line feast on those weak blockers?
That is exactly the blueprint to beat them. A smart playoff opponent won't try to outscore North Memphis. They will suffocate them. They will play 2 deep safeties, keep everything in front of them, and force Coach Steezy to run the ball, which he clearly doesn't want to do.
Take away his best weapon.
Exactly. If the offensive line can't block a 3-man rush, those 39 passing touchdowns have vanished. North Memphis is a statistical house of cards right now.
Speaking of potential houses of cards, it is time for the viewer poll segment.
Let's do it.
This is where we randomly draw one of the top user teams submitted by you, the audience, and we put their championship odds under the microscope based entirely on the data. I'm going to pull a name. Okay, the draw is the Hoboken Hippies, led by Coach Trill.
This is a fantastic draw. Hoboken is the highly controversial #1 team in the lands right now.
Highly controversial.
They are 11-1, riding a massive 10-game win streak. And this isn't an empty streak. They have direct user wins over North Memphis and the North Texas D. They are being billed as the real king of the North.
A great nickname.
Their statistical profile looks incredibly formidable at first glance. 35 points per game, only 21 points allowed, 36 passing touchdowns, and they are limiting opponents to just 298 total yards per game.
On paper, they look like an absolute juggernaut, But despite that number one ranking and the spotlight of this poll, I have some serious skepticism about their ability to win a championship.
Why is that?
Let's talk about the coaching vulnerabilities that the raw stats are masking. The deeper dive into their profile notes that Hoboken has offensive line concerns, just like North Memphis, but more importantly, they have a documented struggle to generate consistent pressure on the quarterback and force turnovers.
That is a red flag.
A massive one. When you look at playoff football in this league, isn't a defense that cannot force turnovers a fatal flaw? In the regular season, you can methodically outscore people 35-21, but in a playoff game against another top-tier user, if you give them a clean pocket all day and you never steal a possession away, they will dissect you. I think they might be fraudulent title contenders.
Calling the number one team in the country fraudulent is a massive statement. But let's look at the counterargument. You are potentially underestimating the psychological element of team management and consistency.
Explain that.
Winning 10 straight games, especially in a league filled with high-level users, without relying on elite defensive pressure, shows an incredibly high floor. It shows that Coach Trill is a master of situational football and morale management.
He knows how to manage a game.
He isn't relying on random number generation, like hoping for a forced fumble animation or a lucky tip drill interception to win games. He is winning through sheer offensive efficiency and a bend but don't break defense that limits yardage. When a team finds ways to win 10 different types of ball games, it builds an armor of confidence. That consistency is just as potent as a star pass rusher.
But does consistency block a 300-pound defensive tackle when your offensive line is weak? If they can't get pressure themselves and they can't protect their own quarterback, I think a physical team will break them in the playoffs.
That physical matchup will be the true test for Hoboken.
Let's look at a physical team I am definitely not skeptical of. Coach Darrell and the Dro City Young Interns, the DCYTs.
They're scary.
They're sitting at number 2, an undefeated 11-0, heading into a rivalry game with Georgia, followed by a rematch with Texas, a team they already dismantled 50-24 just 2 weeks ago.
The statistical profile for Dro City is practically unassailable. It is the most dominant, imposing profile in the entire league.
Hands down.
They score 37 points per game and only allow 20 points against. Their rushing attack is systematically crushing the life out of opponents. They average 176 rushing yards per game and have 33 rushing touchdowns.
Good luck stopping that.
Defensively, they match that physical intensity with 33 sacks. Running back Jamal Haynes is an absolute force of nature with 1,304 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns. And defensive end Ronald Triplett has 13.5 sacks. They're dictating the terms of engagement on every single snap. They do not react to opponents. Opponents react to them.
I love the identity of this team. They have the largest point differential in the league, and they play incredibly smart, consistent football. They know exactly who they are. They run the ball down your throat. They sack your quarterback into oblivion, and they go home. It is a beautiful, brutal simplicity.
It is beautiful on the surface, but we have to pull back the curtain on Coach Darrell's history, because the psychology here is the biggest variable heading into the postseason. In league circles, Darrell is often referred to as the Tom Thibodeau of CCKCFB.
That is an amazing comparison.
For anyone who follows basketball coaching philosophies, you know exactly what that means. He runs his players and his own mental bandwidth into the absolute ground for regular season adulation, but he historically suffers massive, inexplicable playoff blunders.
He burns them out.
His legacy, fairly or unfairly, is defined by the phrase 1, 2, 3 Cancun. He builds these unstoppable regular season machines that completely run out of gas when the postseason hits. Now, the background intel mentions that Darrell is currently operating on renewed motivation. He's reportedly watching 2.5 hours of college football YouTube videos a day to prepare his schemes.
2.5 hours of YouTube film study a day just to prepare for a video game rebuild league. That is a staggering level of dedication.
He wants it bad.
But here is the multi-million-dollar question for you. Does dominating the stat sheet the way Dro City has and watching all that film actually translate to rewriting his playoff narrative? Or is he just doing the exact same Tom Thibodeau thing, burning his digital team out, overthinking his schemes, and setting himself up for another 1, 2, 3 Cancun exit?
That is the crux of the entire Dro City narrative. When you rely so heavily on a bruising running game, generating 176 yards a game on the ground, you are demanding absolute perfection from your offensive line and your running back on every single down.
The margins get tighter in the playoffs.
Exactly. In the playoffs, opponents have scouted you. They know Jamal Haynes is getting the ball. If a playoff opponent loads the box with 8 or 9 defenders and forces Coach Darrell to win entirely through the air, does he have the counter strategy?
He better after 2.5 hours of YouTube a day.
You would think so, but watching YouTube videos is great for installing complex passing concepts. It doesn't simulate the sheer panic of a playoff fourth quarter when your primary weapon is neutralized. He might suffer from analysis paralysis. He has all these new concepts in his head, but when the pressure hits, does he trust them or does he force the ball to Haynes anyway?
Old habits die hard.
Darrell has the best team he's ever had, but he still has to prove his thumbs can execute what his brain has studied when the original game plan fails.
It's show and prove time. No more regular season hype for Drew City.
Okay, it is time to look ahead. We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing the data of year one. Now we're looking into the crystal ball for year two.
Time to make some enemies.
Exactly. We are making our bold predictions based on the stats and the coaching trends we've unpacked today. I'll start. I'm predicting which non-playoff team this year is going to make the jump and be a playoff lock next year. And my pick is the North Texas T.
That is a highly controversial choice, considering we just spent 10 minutes outlining how they catastrophically lost to a 66 overall Utah State team and have the second worst pass defense in their conference. How do you justify them making the jump?
I know the Utah State loss was an embarrassing stain on the resume, but look at the raw materials Coach Easy has acquired. Any coach who can scheme up a defense that generates 47 sacks in a single season has an elite foundational understanding of pressure.
They do get to the quarterback. And offensively, having a weapon like Caleb Hawkins, a guy who can get you 1,600 yards on the ground, means you have the ability to control the clock whenever you want. Coach Easy already possesses the two hardest things to find in football: a dominant pass rush and a dominant running game.
He has the pieces.
He has championship-grade materials. All he needs is one off-season to allocate his recruiting points toward fixing his secondary and a slight adjustment in his own discipline to prevent those focus issues against lesser teams. If he cleans up the pass defense just a fraction, North Texas T goes from 5th in the ACC to an absolute playoff powerhouse.
The logic is sound. If you have the foundation of rushing the passer and running the football, you can usually mask a lot of other deficiencies. For my crystal ball prediction, I am looking at the inverse.
Who is falling off?
Which current playoff team is going to fall off the map and miss the playoffs next year? My selection is the North Memphis Smokies.
Oh, Coach Steezy is definitely going to take that personal.
It isn't personal. It is purely mathematical. A team surviving entirely on 1 to 2 point wins while simultaneously fielding the absolute worst pass defense in their conference is experiencing a massive statistical anomaly.
It's unsustainable.
You cannot sustain an 11-1 record long term when you are giving up 28 points a game and your offensive line is a known liability. Without a complete schematic overhaul of the secondary, regression to the mean is going to hit Coach Steezy incredibly hard in year two. The luck of the bounce will run out.
Those close wins turn into losses.
Those 2-point miraculous wins will mathematically balance out into 4-point losses. Unless he fundamentally changes his team's defensive identity from a shootout mentality to a coverage mentality, they are dropping right out of the playoff picture.
You cannot outrun a terrible pass defense forever. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. What an incredible year one in the CCK Rebuild League.
It's been a ride.
We went from the sheer heartbreak of Queen City losing games by a single play to the absolute statistical anomalies of North Texas T's defense, all the way up to Coach Darrell grinding 2.5 hours of YouTube film a day to avoid another Cancun trip. If this deep dive has shown us anything, it's that in this league, the stats tell a story of profound vulnerability just as loudly as they tell a story of dominance.
They absolutely do. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Lay it on us.
In a created team rebuild league, where every user has the theoretical freedom to recruit any player they want, build any roster imaginable, and call any play in the playbook, why do so many coaches still fall victim to the exact same real-world pitfalls?
It's a great question.
Why do they consistently ignore the offensive line in favor of flashy receivers? Why do they fail to make late-game adjustments when they lean too heavily on one-star player? Is it merely the digital players on the field failing to execute a command? Or does the intense pressure of putting on that headset and playing against a peer reveal who a person truly is under stress?
Does the headset reveal your true self? Keep thinking about that. And more importantly, keep diving deep into the stats with us because the numbers never lie, even when the coaches try to. We will catch you on the next deep dive.